moment of silence and pledge. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call today's meeting to order. Approval of minutes for May 3rd. I will be abstaining. Questions, comments, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker informed me that he had a doctor's appointment, will be arriving late. Commissioner Kiefer?
Yes, just one comment this morning. For anyone listening, today is Washington County Gives Day. If you log on to WashingtonCountyGives.org, you have an opportunity to donate to dozens of nonprofit organizations in our community. They had their kickoff last week to kickstart this day. Looking at the leadership board, or the leaderboard right now, 385 people have donated a total of $121,696 to 80 different organizations. So if you have a special spot in your heart, maybe for senior citizens, children, animals, whatever your special cause may be, check it out. There may be an organization that helps with that need in the community, and you can be part of Washington County Gives Day. WashingtonCountyGives.org. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Burkett?
Good morning, everyone. Just a couple things today. Last week I attended the opening of the Farmers Market in Boonesboro. A lot of our smaller communities have these farmers markets, and so I would challenge you to go visit one of our small communities and support local farmers. I also attended the post-legislative meeting last week held at HCC, where we were updated on all the good things that are coming to Washington County. And then a quick update to those employees who have been reaching out to me about the retirement health insurance issue. We're still waiting to hear back from the archway. And then finally, I attended the Boonesboro Town Council meeting last night. And one question that was asked of me is where the $1 million check is that we approved. And so they're kind of anxious to get that. And so I was just curious if somebody could update us on when they're going to receive a check, or this week. All right. So there you go, Boonesboro. If you're listening, you'll receive that this week.
Yeah, I'll just comment that, when the commissioners approve funds for a particular project, then I think we usually wait until they're ready for the funds to be used, and that's when they contact us, and we received an email from
Councilman Nally contacted us last week about it.
So,
Well, about 3 of them asked last night, so there you go. It's getting fixed. Also, about a month or so ago, we all the commissioners received an email from a citizen that lives on Maple Avenue, and her concern was about the high speed with which cars travel down Maple Avenue and other safety concerns for the young people walking to school. And this brought up another issue that the Boonesboro Campus Avenue realignment project that they're working on. And so they are going to be coming to the commissioners to ask for some support for that. Hopefully with the additional revenues that we're going to see, the surpluses, we can help them with that. I know there's some other small communities that are looking for some support as well. And so as we are growing as a county, it's important that we help our small towns as we're able through their growing pains, because when they grow, Washington County grows. That's all I have today.
Commissioner Wagner?
Good morning. From Charlie's Boonesboro, some of the money was, the reservoir's in pretty bad shape. I know the dive team was there again last week and repaired some leaks, just buying some time. They sandbagged it or something, but it's pretty good underwater video of that and photography of that. That dive team, it slips my mind where they're from out of, does anybody remember where that dive team's from? I know I was there on a couple.
out of Frederick, I believe.
Yeah, out of Frederick. I think they're Frederick County. But anyway, we had given them a stipend there last year because they do this for free. They also use it as training. I don't know if the commissioners want to entertain that in the future to give them another small stipend, just to help them with some of their expenses coming up here and serving the community. They dove at Black Rock for us at the golf course for the intakes on the ponds, and they've done several trips to Boonesboro, but maybe we talk about it another time. Thank Chris Boggs for coming to our land use council meeting. Chris shows up and tells us all about ag preservation and all the programs. Thank you, Chris. Rich is always there. Eichelberger, Joe Baker's there a good bit too, just county support to the land use and Home Builders Association also. Circuit Court, I was at a ribbon cutting for Circuit Court Help Center, Legal Help Center. If you don't know what that is, it's a pretty good resource for the county. You can go in Circuit Court down here. They have a special room for self-help for legal issues, and anybody can use it. I don't know if you have to make an appointment. I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. It's free. They have all the resources. They have Zoom video conferences set up. You can dial into not a local attorney, but attorney throughout the state. They have a pool of attorneys, free help, free legal documents. They print them all out for you. So if you have legal issues, and you can do that. So that might be something to check into if somebody wants to experiment being their own attorney. No offense over there, Adam, but it is what it is. I also attended a post-legislative forum, very informative. They tell you what all's happened in our state legislators in this past year. So I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. And I've spoken to Howard Long. We're scheduling an appointment sometime next week. He's away or not available this week, but I've already spoken to him about some of that so we could, following last month's MML meeting, I spoke to Howard about that, so we're going to be talking to him in advance for that. Just want to make an announcement. Our 10:30 public hearing has been delayed, postponed to another time, so that will not occur today. County Administrator, I would like to try to get some type of update on our 911 radio system. I'm getting a lot of questions and wanting to know, because that was like 6 or 8 months ago, and I hope the price of that didn't go up, because I did think we put out $8 million for that.
The board set aside $8 million towards that project.
Okay. All right, if you
But
give us an
but
update
it
where
is
we're
gonna
at.
be- I think it is going to be more than that.
That's supposed to go for, we're going to hire a consultant or something to give us the accurate RFP, is that right?
Right. I will get an update for the board, provide that.
Okay, and I did have an email about the reservoir from Boonesboro. They believe the cost of that project has gone up, which is happening to just about any capital improvement project. And to repeat, today is Washington County Gives Day. I believe there's 91 charities online. Please go online, as Commissioner Kiefer suggested, and help the nonprofit charity of your choice. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and that completes my report. Next up, County Administrator or Legal?
No comments.
Don?
Just a few things, just to follow up on the comment about the public hearing scheduled for 10:30 this morning. It will be rescheduled and it will be re-advertised. So if anyone's wondering, we'll go through the normal advertising process. So everybody will be notified of that. I want to remind everybody, next Tuesday, the 17th, is our public budget hearing and tax rate hearing, May 17th at 6 p.m. at Kepler Theater at HCC. And anything, just following up on the issue with Boonesboro, the board may remember, the board did write a letter to Maggie McIntosh back in March, supporting a legislative bond initiative by Boonesboro to help with that intersection in Boonesboro. So the commissioners have written a letter in support of that. And I believe that the town of Boonesboro did receive some funds for that, but I'm not sure how much they received. So just wanted to follow up with that. And I think that's all I have.
Yeah, welcome, Vice President Baker. Would you have any commissioner comments?
Just good morning, everyone, and we did have our Parks and Rec meeting this past week, and Mr. Eshelman will be in soon to present all of the possible open space projects for Washington County, and I think he's probably got that scheduled for the next couple of weeks. And that concludes my announcements. Thank you.
Okay, continue on with reports or staff comments. Mr. Hobbs, do you have
Scott
something?
Hobbs has.
Please come forward.
Good morning, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to request a letter of support from the board for this year's application for the federal infra grant, the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant for the ID1 Phase 2 and Phase 2 widening project. The state has been unsuccessful over the last few years in securing the grant under this program. However, this year the infra grant is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law funding for major infrastructure projects of regional and national significance. Phase 2 involves widening from 2 lanes to 3 lanes in each direction from exit 1 to exit 5 at Halfway Boulevard and includes some ramp interchange work. The work's currently under design by Maryland Department of Transportation. MDOT's also asking for recommitment of local funding from the board. In past years, the board has committed $1 million, which is contingent upon receiving the grant award. The total project is currently estimated at $80 million, and the federal grant would cover approximately 80% of the total amount. The letter is similar to last year's letter of support provided by the board, with this year's letter including a rural surface transportation component. On the U.S. Department of Transportation's website, guidance for the application is provided with information about the amount of funding available. On the website, it discusses the infra grant and available funds of $1.5 billion this year, a 50% increase from last year. And also for the rural funding, it discusses and states $300 million available for this year. So to recap, I'm asking for a letter of support similar to what's done over the last few years and a recommitment of the local funding. Any questions?
I have one. For Phase 1, we had to commit some money for that, the grant. Wasn't it for Phase 1? Didn't we have $1 million or something that we had to support that grant with?
When we had the original, the first grants involved, we stated the same, which was the commitment of $1 million if secured for the grant. The state and West Virginia were teamed up on the Phase 1 project, which was the bridge and work to exit 1. But what we've talked about over the last few years is the commitment of $1 million.
Has there been any information from Annapolis or our Department of Transportation on where we're at with our latest request for 81?
We're still waiting to hear from them with any announcements regarding the funding. There's a list of projects that should be forthcoming is what our understanding is. So in the meantime, we'd like to move forward with this grant opportunity.
Commissioners, there consensus to write the letter?
Sure.
I agree.
5 nods.
Thank
5
you.
yeses. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Scott. I mean, as you know, I mean, this board has obviously been very supportive of all of these requests, but, you know, staff is always, and whenever there's an opportunity, we're applying for it. Scott gets emails from me and said, hey, we have this opportunity, and he always puts the applications together, him and other staff. So I want to thank you for that, because we continue to apply. We're continuing to push ID1 and other projects. So this is just another opportunity for us, and hopefully it's going to come through.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other staff comments? Krista? Thank you, Scott.
The Washington County Planning Commission are requesting to accept the recommendation to reappoint Robert Getz Jr. to serve a second 5-year term from May 1, 2022 through April 30th, 2027. This is a paid board, and this would be Mr. Getz's second term.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have first and second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Any other staff comments that I missed? All right. Next is citizens' participation. This is an opportunity for citizens to make comments to the commissioners about an issue or issues of county interest. This is not an interactive dialogue or a question and answer session. It's solely to hear citizens' comments and opinions about matters of county interest. That being said, is there anyone in the front row, citizen comments? Anyone in the second row? Mr. Williams, please come forward, and he jumped up first. Sorry about that. Sorry. Please introduce yourself and address for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dave Williams, 11 West Water Street, Smithsburg. 2 disclosures, I'm a candidate for County Commissioner, and my wife is a member of the Board of Education. I've spoken to you twice before about the need to restore the $1.6 million cut from the Board of Education budget request, a cut that was made before even hearing the BOE's budget presentation. But today, I want to talk about how to restore that $1.6 million. During your budget discussions, Commissioners Burkett and Kiefer both spoke in favor of funding the 5.5 new positions paid for as part of that $1.6 million. Commissioners Burkett and Kiefer understand the need for a counselor in every elementary school, for additional social workers, and for more English learner teachers, needs that fully funding the budget will address. Commissioners Burkett and Kiefer spoke in favor of funding the pay increases included in the BOE budget for sheriff's deputies serving as school resource officers. I believe they've even recognized that our teachers deserve a raise that fully funding the budget will allow. And Commissioner Baker, outside of these public meetings, has been known to say, just find me 2 more votes and I'll support the BOE budget request. Yet, in spite of these comments, I haven't seen any commissioners during these meetings take any action to even make an attempt to restore any of the funding they've spoken in favor of. So, since the draft budget is going to public hearing next week, I thought today I'd make some suggestions about how to restore the $1.6 million you cut from the BOE budget. The last draft of your capital improvement budget shows a nearly $5 million contribution coming from the FY23 general fund. As I've listened to these meetings, I've heard estimates of an expected surplus this year of somewhere between $16 million to $20 million. My suggestion is zero out the capital contribution from the FY23 general fund. Instead, use a portion of that $20 million surplus to cover all or part of that $5 million contribution. That would make up to $5 million general fund dollars available for other purposes. Among those other purposes, of course, I suggest is fully funding the BOE budget by adding back the $1.6 million that was cut. But, on the other hand, maybe you're concerned about giving more money to the schools because it could affect future maintenance of effort spending requirements. If that's the case, then remove the $1.2 million burden of paying for school resource officers from the school budget, using the newly found general fund dollars to offset the additional $1.2 million cost to your public safety budget. Let me remind you, if I remember correctly, only 1 or at most 2 other counties in the state make their schools use education dollars to pay for their resource officers. And as you've said many times, public safety is your top priority. Now, this scenario doesn't fully fund the BOE budget, but it does free up $1.2 million in their budget, which could be used for education instead of security. And it reduces the BOE budget shortfall from $1.6 million to $0.4 million. Forcing the BOE to make $400,000 worth of cuts will be painful, but not as painful as cutting $1.6 million. Or, and this may be the best solution, you could combine the 2 scenarios I just described. Remove the resource officers from BOE responsibility. That allows $1.2 million in the BOE budget to be used for education. Then, use a small portion of the newly found general funds to increase your actual education contribution by just $400,000. Perhaps some of you are already thinking along these same lines, or you have other actions planned to achieve the same goal. If so, great, thank you very much. But it would be nice to hear about those plans. If not today, then for sure at the budget hearing next week. And if you don't have any plans to fully fund the BOE budget, please make that crystal clear to the audience at next week's budget hearing, along with an explanation as to why, with a $16 million to $20 million surplus, you can't or won't do it.
Thank you very much. All right, continuing with citizens' participation, second row. Sir, please come forward. Name and address, please.
My name is Bo. We met, and I'd like to again decline to give the world my home address. But I am a citizen of Washington County. Is that okay?
Okay, whatever you're comfortable with, sir.
Well, yeah, I don't think you should be asking citizens to give home addresses if you guys aren't going to say it before you speak as well. I mean, there's a lot of people can watch this forever because you upload the videos to YouTube. I, would like to recommend that you change that procedure and at least just say, you're a citizen, if that's important. I'm just here today basically just to express my disappointment in the Washington County government. I've been trying to get what I think should be a simple answer to a very simple question of procedure. And he first started coming to this meeting like 5 weeks ago, and I've not heard from a single person here. I put this in writing 6 months ago, and I've not really had a response. No, there's been no response to the specific question I've been asking. Now, I recently did submit a Public Information Act request to Mr. Downey, who apparently is in charge of those records. So within 2 weeks, hopefully we can put this behind us once I get the reasons why or how you managed to transfer certain assets to the private sector. But I'm just very, very disappointed in all of you that no one has come forward to speak to me. No one's emailed me, called me, texted me, made any attempt whatsoever to speak with me. It's almost like you've all taken some type of Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination or at least silence. And I just don't think it's fair, and I'm not going to put up with that. Hopefully, I'll get the alternative, facts that you say exist that will prove that somehow the question I'm asking is not relevant. You got 2 weeks. Hopefully, we'll have that, and we can all go home singing Kumbaya, and this will be over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Continuing with citizens' participation, is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll proceed forward. Again, the public hearing has been rescheduled for another date. On the agenda, expenditure of accrued payments. Travis Allen, please come forward, introduce yourself in the matter. Introduce yourself, folks.
Good morning, Dee Price, Soil Conservation District Assistant Manager.
Elmer Weibly, Soil Conservation District Manager.
And I'm Travis Allen, Comprehensive Planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning.
I'm going to do something I've never done when I'm in front of you. I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let our assistant manager take it from here.
This is going to be your last appearance
I'm a
here.
short timer, and I can do pretty much whatever I'd like.
You can certainly ask him questions, however. So we bring forth to you this morning a proposal for an existing forest stand for the Forest Conservation Program. It's 29 acres approximately. It's steep slopes and encompassing several tributaries along the Conacajig Creek. It has a unique eastern hemlock-dominated stand along the bluff, also adjacent to Conacajig Creek. We did take this parcel and proposal to the Planning Commission, and they approved it as well last week. So we are seeking approval from the Board of County Commissioners today.
Commissioner, thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, I heard the presentation on the planning commission because I did not vote on it, and now I'd be fine with it, so I'd motion to approve it.
You have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
First and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Elmer, she can provide us a report anytime.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Short, sweet, to the point.
All right. We do
Thank
that
you for
well.
everything.
Next up on our agenda, Stone River Farm LLC Conservation Enhancement. Mr. Boggs, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Boggs, Rural Preservation Administrator, Department of Planning and Zoning. This item and the one following it, I've been kind of treating as one project, but because there are certain things that keep these projects separate, I guess I'll go one by one. So the first thing we're looking at here is a Stoner River Farm Crep easement project. So this project is a Crep project funded by DNR, mostly from Project Open Space funds, but these other sources as well for these Crep easements. And the Crep program is kind of set up where they initially have a Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program contract through the USDA's Farm Service Agency. DNR piggybacks off of that Crep contract and allows us to put a permanent easement on the property. That is, you have the Crep contract acreage, which on this project is 1.62 acres, and then you can match up to 10 times that amount in a Crep match easement, so 16.2 acres for that matching. And on the map, you see the aerial map on the screen. The green areas are the Crep contract, or are the Crep easement. This Crep easement is going to go on the Stoner property here, and it will serve to buffer 770 linear feet of an unnamed tributary on the Potomac River and over 1,300 linear feet of the C&O Canal and Potomac River. We've got over 1,700 acres in Crep easements so far here in Washington County, and we are continuing to get funding from the state. As with our Rural Legacy Program, these Crep funds, they're 100% state dollars, and the county does receive 3% of the easement value for administrative costs and 1.5% of the easement value for compliance and monitoring costs to help us administer and monitor these easements. The recommended motion would be to approve the Stoner River Farm LLC Crep easement project in the amount of $65,755.80 over 17.82 easement acres. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Chris, I believe you're up next.
Yep.
Please introduce the subject.
This is the Stoner River Farm LLC Rural Legacy Program easement. We are essentially, like I mentioned, doing this in conjunction with the Crep easement. The reason we have to have two different easements on this property, we're leveraging our Rural Legacy funds with some Crep funds as well, so that we can make the Rural Legacy funds stretch a little further and preserve an additional farm this cycle. And additionally, we have to have two separate easements because the Crep easement is held by both the county and the state, whereas the Rural Legacy easement is only held by the county. So in those two situations, you have to have two separate documents. So the Stoner River Farm Rural Legacy easement is the purple hatched area on your map, purple or pink, I guess however you see it. And that portion of the property is mostly their ag ground and the farmstead. So this is 7604 Dam 4 Road in Sharpsburg, and it's got valuable scenic, environmental, and historic nature to the property. This area, of course, as you know, Sharpsburg was heavily trafficked during the Civil War. Both the house, the bank barn, the spring house, and the small shop are on the Maryland Inventory of Historic Places, and the easement itself will aid in buffering those 770 linear feet of the unnamed tributary and the over 1,300 linear feet of the canal. So, of course, this property is contiguous with thousands of acres of already preserved land in the county and around the battlefield, and we'll be extinguishing 12 development rights with this easement. To this point, the county's been awarded over $26 million since 1998 for rural legacy easements, and we've got over 8,100 acres preserved in the program. And again, 100% state dollars, 3% of the easement value comes to the county for admin cost, 1.5% again for compliance and monitoring costs. And the recommended motion would be to approve the easement in the amount of $305,626 over 90.89 easement acres. Any further questions?
Commissioners,
Motion to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you very much. Chris, I believe you're up again.
It's my last one today.
Please announce the topic.
All right, so this is an agricultural land easement opportunity for the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Program. And the proposal is for the county to enter into a side agreement with the landowner to essentially fully fund their easement. So the Tracy and Brenda Thomas project, they were given what the state calls an insufficient funds offer, where they don't have the funding that's designated for Washington County in order to completely preserve the parcel. So what the state does, they say, well, here's what we've got left. Will you take it? So the landowners, the insufficient funds offer was short, and so they petitioned the county, myself, to work on a side agreement in order to make up that shortage in funds. So essentially, what we've got going on here is there's been a shortfall of $140,229.30 in funding the Thomas easement. If we approve providing the balance of the easement purchase price from our state agricultural transfer tax fund, then we could preserve the farm, and it's a pretty significant size, it's 247.66 acres. Permanently preserve that with a mouth easement. Of course, this approval will initiate the side agreement contract with the property owner to provide that $140,229.30. We'd be using the state agricultural transfer tax dollars for this purpose, and whenever the state ag transfer tax is implemented whenever property with an agricultural use assessment converts to any non-agricultural use. Those tax dollars in return must be used for agricultural land preservation easements. Additionally, since MALF mandates confidentiality of the easement information until after settlement, the only thing we can talk about here is the shortfall. We can't, but I can mention what their offer was in private to the commissioners if you like. But again, that easement value cannot be stated.
So in summary, we have 30 farms that's after this. We have so much money in a pot.
Yeah.
The first 2, 3, 5, whatever farms got all that money, and them being maybe the next farm in line came up short $140,000.
And I think the most important thing about this is that if we don't fund this $140,000+, we actually end up having a net loss next year, because what they do is if the landowner turns down the insufficient
Which
funds
they do
offer,
quite often, right?
Yeah, from time to time they do. Then they go down the list to the next applicant. Well, the next applicant has a much smaller property, and we're only going to have time for maybe that next applicant to say yes or no. Well, if the next applicant says no, then we leave a significant amount of money on the table that goes back to the general allotment and is split evenly amongst all of the counties in the state.
And we don't get the preservation.
Right, and we don't get to preserve the 247 acres. Now, and there's the other option of saving this $140,000 for next year's 60-40 match, because if the state's going to give 60 and we give 40, that 140 can turn into more money. But the problem is that the amount of money we're going to lose by getting this easement, losing this easement, will actually be more next year than what we would lose this year by spending the $140,000.
And the money to make this up comes from people who pay ag transfer tax when when it's recovered.
Correct, and that's the thing. Right now, because of all the warehouses that have gone in, we have a significant amount of funding in our ag transfer tax account. So we actually, a lot of the reasons, the main reason we haven't done this for we have done this before for other applicants. But over the past few years, we have had some insufficient funds offers, but we haven't had enough money to comfortably do a side agreement with them.
So the land the warehouse takes, they pay their ag transfer tax, and then the land they took from, even though it wasn't zoned out, but for agriculture, we can make it back up with agriculture here.
Well, essentially, yeah, by using $140,000 of our ag transfer tax, we can preserve a 247-acre farm.
I'd be all right with it.
So this money isn't coming from our general operating budget? It's not?
No, this fund can only be used for land preservation, so there's,
I just wanted to,
yep.
Okay, Commissioners, any other comments?
I'd motion to approve.
Second.
A first and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
aye.
5-0, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next up, proclamation of recognizing May as Building Safety Month. Gentlemen, please introduce yourselves and the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Eichelberger, Director and Code Official with the Division of Permits and Inspections. With me is Frank Quillen, who's our Chief Plans Examiner, Deputy Code Official, and also wears the hat of being the current President of the Maryland Building Officials Association. We're here today to announce that May is Building Safety Month all across the nation, and the state recognizes, as well as states all across the country. And I think Frank has a few words that he would like to present as the president of the association. So.
Thank you, Rich. With an extensive history dating back to 2200 BC and the Code of Hammurabi, building codes have protected the public for thousands of years. Today, the international codes, developed by the Code Council and adopted by our community, are the most widely used and adopted set of building safety codes in the world. Safety for all, building codes in action, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022 encourages us all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creating a safe environment for all who work, live, learn, and play in buildings constructed in Washington County. Thank you.
Question for you. Did we not have an inspector or two win state honors in the past?
We've had multiple, over the years, since I've been with Washington County, we've had multiple employees who have been recognized as, through MBOA, through the state, as building inspectors of the year, plans examiners of the year. Frank, I believe, was one of those in the past.
Yes.
So we've had, I don't know offhand, but I would say probably somewhere around at least a half a dozen, really in the last probably 15 years or so, that we've had those folks recognized through the state.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, if you join Mr. Kiefer up by the flags, he'd like to do a presentation to you, and then we'll pose for a picture up front. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Scooch on over. We have a proclamation here. Get on in here too, Rich. Proclamation, Building Safety Month, May 2022. Whereas Washington County is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructures play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. Our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians and dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the building trades to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. These modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Safety for All, Building Codes in Action, the theme for Building Safety Month Month 2022 encourages us all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creative a safe and abundant water supply for all. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to provide building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. And now, therefore, we're coming to the end. We, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Building Safety Month in Washington County and urge all citizens to join us in recognizing and participating in the special observance. Awarded this 10th day of May 2022, signed by all 5 commissioners and our county clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move that. Another picture.
Next on our agenda, agriculture facts basis, of farming. Please come forward and introduce yourselves and the matter.
Sure.
Bearing gifts, I see in the background.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. Susan Grimes, Director of Business Development. Leslie Hart, Business Development. I specialize in ag. It's a favorite time of the month, guys and gal. This is your Faces of Farming. I'm presenting the May Faces of Farming campaign. This particular campaign is focused on crops. And just as a reminder to you, this will go out in several outlets. Social media is probably one of the largest ones, but it will also be shared as an educational element with students in our schools, FFA, 4-H. It will also show up at the fair as well. Just want to remind you that agriculture in Washington County is the largest single business, doing over $153 million in market sales for the value of the products sold. So I'm going to introduce today 2 farms. One is Beckley Farms, located in Sharpsburg, and the other one is Creekbound Farms, located in Hagerstown. You're going to learn about both of those. But before I do that, I just do want to share with you that the month of June is going to be very special for us. It will be dairy, and I have a wonderful amount of things coming your way. So I look forward to June. But while I do want to just share with you, in your lifetime, you will eat in a year, you will eat 53 loaves of bread as a direct result of the crops that are grown here in Washington County. Those items all go into the food stream as far as anything cereals, grains, breads, sweets. If you can think of it as bread, it comes through, and several of our farms are actually directly putting food into consumers' mouths. So today I have for you Burkholder's bread dinner rolls. I call them little puffs of goodness. And you also have local butter and raspberry jelly to go along with it. So, Public Relations Department, thank you very much. And if you can roll that beautiful bean footage.
Thank you.
The crops that I grow, as far as the end user, they would be processed or fed through animals, what have you. The corn is sold to local mills for people to feed cattle, hogs, what have you, poultry. The wheat goes to southern Pennsylvania, most of it, to flour mills, which end up in bread and pastries. And the margins are a lot smaller now than they were in the 1970s. Probably the biggest change, I would think, though, would be technology. Technology is completely, well, like everything, you know, from your phone on. But for us, we now, when we're planting corn, everything is by GPS. Basically, the driver turns the machine around at the end of the field, lets the machine down, and then it turns on when it's supposed to, it turns off when it's supposed to, it goes straight out through the field, it puts the rows where they need to be. It's going through the field, we know what the crop is yielding, what the moisture content is, the weight, you can know exactly how much you're putting on the truck, what variety of seed was planted, and you know, it compares varieties. Then it's science and technology has doubled and close to tripled the yields that we get from now compared to when we started in 1974. We have good dirt here. It is a very productive area. So I hope there's a good future for generations to come.
Between our acres that we own, lease, and crop share, we're at 4,200 acres. So we grow corn, soybeans, and wheat. On average yields, our corn yields would be about 250,000 bushels a year. The wheat would be about 120,000 bushels, and the soybeans would be around 70,000 bushels. So the corn, a lot of it goes to the Hagerstown mills in the Hopewell Valley here in Washington County. Kent Nutrition and Land O'Lakes, and that is made into feed for local farmers to feed their livestock. The wheat, majority of it goes to ADM Milling in Camp Hill, where it is milled and then sold to different factories for making bread and pastries. And most of the soybeans go to the crush plant that Purdue has in Bainbridge, and it's crushed into soybean oil and soybean meal. Well, we love what we do, and we're happy to do it in Washington County. This is where all of our family is. We do love farming in this county. It does have its challenges with the limestone rocks and traffic on the roads, and you know, not being as rural as some other counties for large-scale ag production. But this is where we call home, and we have a huge investment in staying here and farming here, and my children are interested in farming here as well. So I think that there is a good future. I think that there will be a lot of small-scale specialty or large-scale. The use of the manure is using a natural organic product for fertilizer, and the alternative is chemical fertilizers.
I'd have to say that not only is Jared Weddle doing this, he's also involved in our community. Just recently fulfilled a term and got off the planning commission, and he's on our ag preservation board too. So he's helping out in other ways other than just the massive farming he's doing. So
The Weddles are very connected to our community. Both their boys are in Boonesboro Middle School and going to be going into high school. They're already active in the FFA program. So
Very good.
twins on the farm. So they need all that labor to work 4,200 acres.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice, very nice. Next up, FY '23 ARC preliminary project description. Susan, please come forward, introduce yourself and the matter.
Good morning, Susan Buchanan, Director, Office Grant Management. Here this morning, presenting the FY23 Appalachian Regional Commission Preliminary Project Description Rankings for your review and approval. As part of the annual ARC funding program, Tri-County Council for Western Maryland, the local administrator of these federal funds, requests that the county review and prioritize projects submitted for grant funding consideration. A review committee consisting of the county administrator and directors from offices of planning and zoning, business development, grant management, and engineering have reviewed the projects and assigned a preliminary ranking. Board of County Commissioners then has the final authority to review and rank the proposals at their sole discretion prior to our submission to Tri-County Council. ARC's preliminary project description forms were distributed in February to municipalities, educational agencies, healthcare providers, and nonprofit agencies, inviting them to submit requests for funding through ARC. ARC area development grants require a 50-50 matching funding match. In FY23, ARC's funding for Allegheny, Garrett, and Washington counties is expected to be approximately $2 million, and that funding is evenly distributed between the three counties. And based upon this, our share this year is expected to be slightly over $660,000. Funding requests for Washington County's projects this year include 12 proposed projects requesting $5,179,325. I do have a chart that is attached to this ARF that shows the the projects as ranked by the review committee. Factors that were considered by this committee when ranking these projects include their eligibility for the program, their consistency with ARC program goals, the commitment of the matching funds, the meeting of needs, critical needs in our community, and then diversity both of the applicant and also the type of project funded. Based upon the estimated available funding this year, it is projected that the top 5 projects listed here are likely to be able to move forward to be in a fundable position in FY23. Any questions, comments?
I'd like to make the motion that we move to accept 5 projects, or the list of projects being presented to us today.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, and I'd like to
Very
thank
much.
the committee as well for their time that they put into the review.
Next up, construction bid award.
Good morning again, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to recommend the board award the bid for the Pavement Maintenance and Rehabilitation Program FY22 chip seal applications contract to the lowest responsible bidder, Russell Standard Corporation of Fayetteville, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $1,623,364.50, which includes the option to extend the contract for a period of up to 2 one-year extensions. The project was advertised in the Herald Mail, on the county's website, and an email on Marketplace Advantage. One bid was received on Wednesday, April 13th. The bid has been evaluated, and the low bid is in order. The engineer's estimate was $1,650,000. The pavement maintenance and rehabilitation program for chip seal applications involves pavement maintenance, preservation, and repair. Applications include providing single chip and double chip surface treatments, fog sealing, patching, and permanent pavement markings. The project includes approximately 29 miles of treatment applications. The contract follows State Highway Administration provisions for monthly liquid asphalt price adjustments and diesel fuel adjustments. The project is an 80 consecutive calendar day contract with an anticipated notice to proceed in July and a completion date in September. The bid documents include liquidated damages in the amount of $500 per calendar day for work beyond the completion date and an option to extend the contract additional years. Motorists may experience some minor delays as a result of lane closures, but there are no full road closures associated with the work. Roadwork signs will be posted throughout the duration of the work. The road list has been attached and is also posted on the county's website. This is a budgeted capital improvement project, and expenses are estimated at $1.7 million, with other expenses for inspection, testing, and construction contingency. This is the most cost-effective and practical alternative. The roads are substandard and need repairs to extend the service life. So the maps are associated throughout the county and also the road list. Any questions?
I don't see a list of the other bidders. Is that?
That was our only bid for
Okay.
this work.
So I guess it was low bid.
Yes, and it's in line with our estimates.
Right.
Of course, with the diesel fuel and asphalt, liquid asphalt has been higher over the years, as we're aware of and been talking about over the last several months here with all of our projects and material costs. So that was anticipated, and we have the budget in our pavement maintenance program budget to have those increases included.
Just go ahead, Charlie.
I'm sorry. Why would there only be one company? I mean, is this?
There's not a lot of companies, it's a specialty work, so there's
Okay.
not a lot of companies that perform chip seal in our area and in around our area.
But it was advertised like?
Yes. We've typically have seen 1, 2, 3 bidders on chip seal, typically throughout the years.
You said 29 miles for 1.6 million, basically. That's, my math's about 50, curious, 50-some thousand a mile, or is my math?
Yes,
Yeah.
all in, we're around 50,000. A few years ago, we're in the 30,000 range for chip seal per mile. 35,000, now we're up to about 50,000, all costs included.
And asphalt would be how much?
Asphalt, we're in the range of about $250,000 per mile. And that a lot includes the amount of patching that you have to do on the roads. The highway department's a big part of that also with their work to perform some of the prep work. So we use highway department and the contractor to do prep work for the roads to make sure that these surface treatments can be done appropriately. So that cost goes into a lot depending on the amount of patch work on a road. It's a higher cost.
Commissioners, motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. First and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Five oh. Next up.
Back again. So Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering, here to recommend the award for the Mousetown Road Culvert Replacement Contract to the lowest responsible bidder, Service All Incorporated of Mitchellville, Maryland, in the amount of $593,481. Also, this project was advertised in the Herald Mail, on the county's website, and email Marketplace Advantage. On this project, 5 bids were received on Wednesday, April 20th. The bid tabs associated is provided, and the associated numbers are provided here. The bids have been evaluated, and the low bid is in order. The engineer's estimate was $675,000. The project involves the replacement of 2 culverts on Mousetown Road. Work includes construction of a precast reinforced concrete box culvert in the 20,850 block and construction of reinforced concrete pipe in the 21,000 block of Mousetown Road, with construction of cast-in-place concrete end walls, grading, asphalt paving, and installation of traffic barrier at both locations. The project is a 200 consecutive calendar day contract with an anticipated notice to proceed in June of 2022 and a completion date in December 2022. Bid documents include liquidated damages in the amount of $500 per calendar day for work beyond the date. There is a road closure associated with the work. Public notices will be made and road signs will be posted. There'll also be separate closures for each project, so you'll be able to, of course, any of the property owners in between the project will be able to get in and out of the sites. The sites are on the same road, just about a quarter mile apart. These are budgeted capital improvement plan projects. Total expenses are estimated at $668,000, with expenses for inspection, utilities, right-of-way, and construction contingency also involved on the project. This is most cost-effective and practical alternative. These culverts are in poor condition and need of replacement. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Where's that company out of?
Mitchellville is down near Bowie, Maryland. They've done work around the DC metro area in southern Maryland. So we've checked references, and this is a company that did the work. As you saw, there was 5 bidders on this project. The culverts, we typically get a few more bidders that do site work and culvert projects in and around the state and county and local area.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Next up, construction bid award, Clear Spring Library for the heat pump. Andrew Eichman, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works. I'm here before you seeking a motion to award the bid for the removal of the existing HVAC system and installation of a new heat pump HVAC unit at the Clear Spring Library to the lowest responsive bidder, Nova Facility Solutions of McLean, Virginia, in the amount of $56,549. The county accepted bids on April 20th, 2022. The project was advertised on the county's website and the state of Maryland's website, eMaryland Marketplace Advantage. 25 persons or companies registered and downloaded the bid documents, and we did receive 7 bids for the work, and those are included in the bid tabulation form. So overall, the project's pretty straightforward. We have an existing air conditioning and ventilation unit at the Clear Spring Library that needs to be replaced, and we're going to be doing that with a new 20-ton heat pump unit that will also be providing heating, ventilation, and air conditioning for the building. The existing unit is original and over 20 years old. There's frequent outages and refrigerant leaks that we have to track down and try to repair. The new unit, the reason we're going with a heat pump is it'll provide some more efficient heating assistance to the existing fuel oil boiler system. And we do have funds available in the library systemic project account.
This brings up an interesting question for me, because I was approached, as I've been going around the county, by somebody about contracting services when we contract with people. I don't have my reading glasses, so I hope I'm reading these numbers correct. It looks like Cumberland Valley of Hagerstown, Maryland was only $681 short of low bid.
Mm-hmm.
And this other company is out of Virginia.
Correct.
You know, it would be nice if we would give priority to our local companies, especially when it's small amounts like this. And I don't know if that's something that we could take up at some point, but it would be nice to see us supporting our local businesses, especially when we're talking about $681. That's just a general comment, so.
Well, I like your comment, Commissioner Burke. It's something that I know this board has talked about a few times. It's a concept called local preference, and I believe we may need approval from the General Assembly to do so. But the thing is, we have counties and municipalities surrounding Washington County that also have a local preference. And so that, in some ways, puts them at an advantage for their local companies over us. And you're right, $681 is the difference between those two. $681 would be more than made up for in just the income tax that company, or a local company, would have to pay versus one out of Virginia. I have no connections to Cumberland Valley HVAC, but, you know, the ramifications of having a local company be the winner on a project employs local people. Again, they pay local taxes. They would probably buy some of their supplies locally. Maybe not the HVAC system itself, but some of the other, you know, ancillary tools that they need. I think it makes sense to look into a local preference.
Do we have the authority to reject low bid and when it's?
I know this question's come up before, and I believe Rick Curry did a presentation on it several years ago. I mean, when we do bids, this was a request for price proposals. So traditionally, when we do that, it's based upon the lowest responsible bidder. We do have other types of proposals, technical proposals, where we will put out a set of evaluation criteria, and that will be more or less what's called a qualified bid selection. And so in those instances, we do, in some cases, have local preference, and in that case, you're evaluating the proposals, and you can have different rating criteria and use that as a basis, and in that case, then you're working through with that company or design professional and negotiating a price more or less after the fact. So I know it's come up before, it's been discussed, and you're correct, there are different places that do have local preference, but we've never
Did you put the engineer's price on this, what you thought it would be? I didn't.
Yes, I mean, currently, when we put it out to bid, we checked, and it is in the 50 to 60,000 range. I'll tell you, when we started looking at this a year ago, we were in the 40 to 50,000 range, but that's what we've seen as far as price increases on these type of equipment.
And I think we did talk about local preference once upon a time, and there was I don't know what happened to that. But I guess, follow up on Charlie's question, if you had not so much local preference, but if you had the ability with that kind of a difference, do something other than what we just did, and I don't have the, Kirk, what abilities do we have if we wanted to, say for instance, if when these bids came in and they had a $600 difference.
We don't really have any authority at this point because the Code of Public Local Laws prescribes the procurement procedures, and in this case, assuming a bidder is responsive, then the bid goes to the lowest responsible bidder.
We need to work on something then, because $600, I don't know anybody at Cumberland Valley that I'm aware of. I have nothing to gain here by this. I'm just looking at a number of less than $1,000 difference, and we could keep that money local, that's all.
Commissioner Wagner, would you be interested in maybe seeing what it would take if we set a local, to implement a local preference? And maybe put a cap on it of like 1%, 2% needs to be the variance. So, obviously if the difference is on a $60,000 project, $10,000, unfortunately you don't go local. But when you're looking at less than 1%.
Yeah, the 600 really caught my attention. I think we'd have to hear both sides. Does our local businesses want local preference? I mean, would that affect them? Let's just say a big company, Burgunia or Masonry or Building Systems, if they went out of town, does that put them at a hand? Because a lot of our people work out of town too. So I'd want to hear the pros and cons of maybe they don't want to do that because maybe they get penalized for going to outside of town over in West Virginia or in Pennsylvania. So that's the part I'd want to be really careful about. I don't want to kill our businesses, to do something like this. I don't have the answers to that.
I believe that's called a reciprocal preference.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
And that's a concept we've talked about.
Right, I was going to say, this board has talked about it several times about local preference, and you're right. There are some people that are really in favor of it, and there's some people that are not. And one of the reasons they have mentioned is if Washington County does it, then if all the other counties around us do it, then we're going to have difficulty getting work in other, and I'll let them speak for themselves. But that was one of the things that they said.
I just think of all the money and time and effort we put into all these campaigns for shop local, buy local. We partner with the Chamber of Commerce on some things. Some of our videos that we showed this morning of, what's done locally, support local farmers. But we don't implement that ourselves. We ask our citizens to, but we don't ourselves.
Well, there's questions about, what's local? Are we talking about Washington County? Are we talking about this area?
We've also talked about a contiguous county. We've also talked about a contiguous county. So even if you may have been in another state, maybe Franklin County, maybe Berkeley, maybe Frederick County, Allegheny County to the west.
Right, because we have companies that are located in different areas. They may have a presence here, but they may be located somewhere else. Or they may be located here and have a presence somewhere else. So there's just a lot of things to work through. And you're right. I know Rick and even before him, I think Karen, even before that, it had come up before, and there have been some presentations. So if the board wants staff to look into that and have a further discussion,
it's certainly worthwhile discussion.
Right,
and
absolutely.
like John was kind of hinting at, you want to help local businesses, but then sometimes it does become a little bit more murky. And so I'm sure if Rick's listening, you know, maybe appropriate to revisit that. But as far as where we are today, we're going to have to go by what the conditions were when we put the bid out.
That's correct.
But like I said, we do have that in our toolbox. We do other types of proposal methods that are based upon different sets of criteria. But predominantly, when we go by construction bids where there's a prescribed set of drawings and specifications, that's what they're bidding on.
And if there is a change needed, if there needs to be a legislative change, I mean, obviously that would be something the commissioners would have to consider and bring forth to delegation in the next session if that's what he wanted to do, so.
Okay, right now we have, looking for a motion to approve this. Is there first?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Downey, please introduce the topic.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you know, the county has been in a long-term contractual relationship with what is now known as the Humane Society for Washington County to provide animal control services in the county. That contract is set to expire the end of August of this year. It does have an automatic renewal provision where it automatically renews for 5 years unless the party elects to terminate the agreement. The parties are looking at renegotiating the contract. The county continues to desire for the Humane Society to provide animal control services, but neither party at this point wants the contract to automatically renew on its same terms for another 5 years. So this is a request for a second amendment to amend just that portion of the contract regarding the automatic renewal, which will give the parties time to engage in negotiations for a proposed new contract. Mr. Gravel is here on behalf of the Humane Society, and they are in agreement with this request.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. My name's Adam Gravel. As you know, I represent the Humane Society. I've had the privilege of doing so since about 2014 and served on the Animal Control Authority as the chairperson for 3 years prior to that. I do believe they were expecting to be here. Colin Berry was expecting to be here. I think the agenda got moved forward a little quicker than we thought, so they may show up a little later and wonder what's going on. But anyway, Mr. Downey is correct. I don't want to cast this as a broad renegotiation. I think the more accurate statement of what's going on here is this contract was written in 1999 with an amendment in 2001, and it was set in motion as a 21-year term. And time flies when you're having fun, I guess, and we're almost up on that 21 years. We had reached out to Mr. Downey a month or two ago to start this discussion, and, you know, we really only have about 3 months left before this contract expires. And what we're really looking to do is to modernize the terms. And I think if you try to read the entire contract and then look at what the county's doing today and look at what the Humane Society is doing today, the practice doesn't match up to the terms of the contract. There's a lot of anachronisms in the contract that deal with, you know, proposed buildings of facilities that were in the works in the year 2000 that are ancient history by today, and sort of the methods of allocating the funds. The Humane Society, I guess, was the ASPCA. SPCA prior to that existed before its contract with the county. And the county has certain animal control responsibilities arising under the Animal Control Ordinance. And so rather than the county actually doing that job itself, the county contracts the Humane Society to perform those functions. And so there's an allocation of the expenses that are incurred by the Humane Society in performing what they already did, and then on top of that, what they do for the county. And so it's worth revisiting in light of sort of recent history and how the county and the Humane Society have sort of come to terms with how they're going to pay for things. And basically, I'd like to see the paper match the practice. And so our intent here at the Humane Society, I know, intends to continue to serve the county in this capacity into the future. And we'd like to modernize the contract to make it, again, something that's comprehensible. I don't think I'm going out on a limb to suggest that if you all read that contract, you'll find it largely incomprehensible in today's terms. It probably made sense 20 years ago. A lot of it doesn't make sense today. So we'd like to have a piece of paper that we all can read and understand and maybe be a little bit future-proof. So to that end, we view this as sort of a leverage point where the current contract. Come on down.
You hiding back here?
Yeah, we started a little early.
I know. This is Colin Berry. I was just really just kind of giving them an overview. And so anyway, we all turn into a pumpkin on May 14th, I think, or 16th. It's 90 days prior to the 21st anniversary of the First Amendment, which was, August 14th, 2001. So it's upon us. And I don't think either party necessarily has a desire to have an automatic renewal on the existing anachronistic terms. But, and Colin, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, hi, Crystal, come on down.
Come on.
That's fine. Kind of view this as a leverage point. We don't necessarily want to automatically renew for 5 years upon these old terms, and then just have everybody say, well, we got another 5 years where the practice doesn't match the paper. And so my proposed amendment that I drafted a few days ago was really to keep everything in place, but simply to eliminate that automatic renewal provision. And then I did bump the term to expire on August 31st instead of August 14th or whatever it is. So basically, that gives us until the end of August to negotiate the terms of a comprehensive agreement going forward that hopefully is understandable to all parties.
Yeah, I'd motion to approve.
Second, just with the question, does that timeline give our staff enough time to prepare what's needed or to review what's needed on our end?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think
It's an aggressive timeline.
Yeah, I would, the ball's sort of in my court to draft an initial draft, which will probably, be kind of terrible, and we'll work from there back and forth to get to something that actually everybody's on the same.
Do we need more time?
Right, I was going to say, I think the question, Commissioner Kiefer, I think you're all asking is whether August 31st is the right date or whether we should extend it out a little bit more. Obviously, not to extend it out for 5 years, but to extend it to give staff and this board and your board time
Probably
to
made
make
it
sure we.
November 30th.
That's fine. I mean, that's.
Commissioners, you okay with that change?
Is the Humane Society okay with that change?
October,
Let's meet in the middle.
October 31st, Halloween.
October 31st?
We all turn into a pumpkin.
Okay, so there's an amendment to the motion to change the agreement to October 31st. Commissioners, everybody understand that?
Want to put one extension in there to the end of November if need be?
Yeah, I mean,
Come back in.
Yeah, well, you don't have to come back in. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we have October 31st with a possible extension to the end of November if needed.
okay, so a trigger, either the county or us will request an extension on or before, September 30th, if we're not rounding third and heading
Okay,
on.
Commissioners have a first and a second with the added wording. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, thank you very much.
We'll see you in November.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda, remote work policy. Those involved, please come forward and introduce yourselves and the matter.
Good morning. Tom Brown, Emergency Manager. This morning, I'm joined by the Director of Public Relations and Marketing, Danielle Weaver, and the Interim Director of Human Resources, Deb Kondo. In response to a request from this board, the County Administrator formed a committee to create a remote work policy for the county. In your packet, you have a copy of a draft policy created by that group. Today, we're recommending that a motion be made to approve the implementation of the remote work policy for Washington County government. At this time, I'd like to ask Director Weaver to present information regarding remote work, followed by Interim Director Kondo providing some specific information contained within the draft policy being considered today.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of information on what remote work is. Remote work is a type of flexible working arrangement that allows an employee to work from a remote location outside of a corporate office. For employees who can complete work off-site, this arrangement can help ensure work-life balance, access to career opportunities, and reduce commuting costs. There are benefits to remote work for both the employee and the employer. For an employee, it increases sense of achievement due to the increase in productivity. It's better for an employee's health. It can boost an employee's morale and job satisfaction. It saves money for employee expenses. It can reduce stress. It's an improved work-life balance, and an employee is able to work in weather emergencies safely. For the employer, it can increase productivity. It saves on building space, utilities, operational maintenance expenses, and more. It can decrease turnover rates. It expands the human resources pool. It's great for the environment. There's a reduction in absenteeism, and it provides the employer with flexibility to provide business continuity of operations during a regional or weather crisis. There are certain traits of a successful remote worker. A remote worker needs to be independent and self-sufficient. They need to be disciplined, setting personal deadlines and following through, and setting boundaries. They need to have strong communication skills. They need to be highly responsive. It's important to be responding to emails and phone calls. They need to be highly flexible and tech savvy. It's really important to understand that and be able to use current technology, computer applications, and using them appropriately without guidance or constant instruction. So what remote work isn't? Remote work is not meant to be a substitute for child or dependent care. Remote work is not meant to be lazy or non-productive. It's going to be important that work is still being produced and results are being provided. Remote work is not an excuse to never come on site. Remote work is not an option to not answer emails, calls, or attend meetings. And definitely remote work is not meant to be a burden. So remote work is the future of working. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, more organizations are offering remote work opportunities, and those include the state of Maryland and federal government. So there are examples of eligible remote work. So employees that are suitable for remote work require no face-to-face personal contact or may be able to schedule face-to-face contact on specific dates. Employees who have clear working objectives. Employees who do not require immediate feedback or live in-person supervision. Employees who can complete projects and tasks remotely without negatively impacting the organization. And employees who can work independently and will benefit from quiet or uninterrupted time. Employees who are not suitable for remote work are those who need to be face-to-face and have personal contact. Employees who need to be hands-on, operating equipment, vehicles, or other on-site materials. Employees who have direct physical handling of secure materials. And employees who have activities that are dependent on physical presence. So what does an employee's remote site need to look like? An employee's remote site needs to have adequate and secure internet service. They need to have a safe and functional workplace, a place free of distractions and background noise, and a laptop that's been issued by the county that will allow for phone calls and video meetings directly from the computer. So to apply for the remote work process, there's going to be several steps. Step 1, the employee will need to read the county remote work policy. Step 2, inform your supervisor you would like to apply for remote work. Step 3, the supervisor will complete the assessing remote needs checklist with the employee. And then step 4, the employee will complete the remote work form and will need to be approved by the supervisor and division director. So it's extremely important that you're using the tools to be successful with remote work. Positions that are eligible to work remote have the tools to work seamlessly with proper internet connection wherever the remote worker is stationed. Using Office 365, which is provided by the county, a remote worker can email, answer and make phone calls, collaborate with teammates, access department documents, conduct video meetings and chats, and use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and more. Washington County's Information Technology Team has a dedicated sharing site that remote workers can access for training, requesting time off, submitting a help desk ticket, and many other helpful items for remote workers. So Microsoft Teams is a business communication platform that can be utilized by remote workers. Microsoft Teams is a telephone replacement that can answer and make phone calls directly from a computer. It also allows you to have chats with teammates, and you can conduct both phone and video meetings directly from the Teams application. Excuse me. The other important item that Teams allows you to utilize is you can see the work status. So supervisors can easily see if a remote worker is actively working or idle. And that's my presentation. And now I'm going to pass it over to Deb Kondo.
Thank you, Commissioners. What I want to do is just provide an overview with the remote work policy, as you see in the agenda, as well as with the assessing remote work needs and the remote work agreement. We feel that this is a policy that would bring, hopefully, retention as well as a new ability to attract talent for the county. With the trend that remote work and telework is becoming more commonplace thanks to the pandemic, we do feel that it would be a plus for us, and in the future may even offer a potential savings insofar as overhead for office space and utilities. Would also, depending on the nature of the position, could help the employees with cost related to travel to and from various worksite locations. I know that there may be concerns, as with any new policy or program, we are taking additional precautions and setting it up and staging it so that we'll be successful with training the management team, the assistant directors, supervisors, division directors, with rolling it out, as well as helping to identify the employees who would be suitable for remote work. Please know that just because it's going to be a different location, the same work rules will apply. All existing county policies are still to remain in effect. The division director, the directors, or the managers of the employees are responsible to ensure performance and evaluation of the employees while they're working remotely. We are going to offer them tools and suggestions insofar as check-ins, daily contacts. As Danielle said, the expectation is going to be the same as if they're sitting at their desk, though not all positions will be eligible for remote work. That's something that the division director and the director or the employee's manager would need to make the final decision on. Let's see. Security of information is a grave concern for all. Please know that measures will be put in place to ensure that the data of the employees as well as the county business will remain intact as though the employee were in the office, insofar as correspondence, calls, and the maintenance and retention of employee records. Do you have any questions?
I have a couple. Can you give us an example of a position that you would see eligible for this, and how would they continue to do that duty that they do now?
Is this directed towards me or anyone?
Any of you. Open question.
I can think of one in our office. Our risk manager, Tracy McCammon, she primarily works with management level as well as outside vendors for the insurances. She has very little interaction with the employees directly. She would be someone that in our department would be considered.
So she don't need to run to a file cabinet and get paperwork or?
Tracy is very tech savvy. All of her files are kept electronically, though she does have a paper backup. Once she scans the documents, she shreds them. So she definitely would be a candidate.
Any other positions you can think of that would be?
I would think that any position, and not getting into actual specific departments or actually specific positions, but any position that is office-based, that does not require a lot of one-on-one interaction with either coworkers or especially the public, that has the ability to utilize the different types of IT software programs that are available to complete their work, and has the ability to make their job be a seamless transition to remote work. We're not going to try to suggest that we hide from the public that the employee is not working on site, but we do not want there to be any type of interruption that the public would normally not experience if the person was on site. So any position that has the ability to be able to do that, I would say I would think would qualify for that.
So would you consider, I'm going to use the term because I don't know what else to call it, but I know that it's probably the wrong term for today, but would you consider a front door secretary a candidate for this type of position? And there's a reason I asked that.
If the front door secretary, if part of their normal job requirements are to meet the public as they come into the office area, then I would say that there would be a tough time with making them off-site because they're not going to be able to perform that function. Now, with that being said, is there a way for the director within that department to reassign that responsibility to staff that are on-site so that there's not an interruption to the person that comes into the office, which would allow that front door, as you said, secretary to work remotely, even if it's 1 or 2 or 3 days a week? That's possible. This whole policy is designed to allow the directors of each department to determine what is the best way for them to operate and how they can do that. And if they were to come up with a solution to that, that would not interrupt service, then this policy is designed to allow that.
The reason I asked that is because I was appointed last April in the middle of COVID. And so when I went up to personnel to take care of some things, there was nobody there at the front door. And so I had to walk through the office to try to figure out, that's the only reason I bring that up. So would you consider that position, and you work there, would you consider that position a candidate for a remote work policy?
No, I would not. However, during the pandemic, we were on a schedule where only so many could be in the office. And though you did walk into a reception area where there wasn't someone, we did have the office staffed. And if I'm correct, you were assistant.
Yeah, no, I'm not calling you out or anything like that. I'm just, in my mind, I'm trying to think, going forward, not COVID, what would that look like? Who would be a candidate? That's all. So I wasn't meaning that in a derogatory way. I wasn't trying to say, hey, why wasn't somebody there? It's about today and moving forward.
Well, and I think what...
Matter of fact, I support this. So one other question, startup cost. Have you considered the startup cost of this? what will be the startup cost of buying all those computers? And
I was gonna say,
We aren't planning to purchase anything
Yeah, I mean-
for this to
so
go
we
into
already
effect.
have these.
So if you don't already have it in place today, then you're not going to be eligible to work remote today. It doesn't mean that, down the road, if you budgeted for it, you could potentially budget for it in the future. But as of today, if you cannot work remote because you don't have the supplies to do so,
Right,
then you aren't eligible.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No, let me just say this. So, one thing, this is a policy, so what this does not identify specific positions that are going to be remote positions moving forward. So you're not going to see advertisements for county positions saying, this is a remote position. We're not there yet. Maybe we'll get there at some point, but we're not there yet. So we'll have to work through, and each department and division director will have to look at their positions and take into the consideration the things you were just talking about as to whether that particular position at this particular time in that particular department could remote work. So, and just to follow up on your other question, so we're not going to go out and buy a bunch of equipment. I mean, some people have equipment now, and that may factor into whether someone in a certain position can remote work now. Departments, as they go through the next year or years, they may identify positions that could work remotely if they had equipment, and that would have to be put into their budget moving forward, which will eventually come to this board for consideration. So we're not anticipating, any large, everybody's going to run out and buy laptop computers for all county employees or anything like that.
Do you guys visualize this on a rotating basis, like you're both directors, or would PR be all out, or would there be somebody in-house? Would HR be all out? Would there be somebody in-house? I guess call me old. I'm old school. I like, give the guy the plane tickets or the gal, send them on the road to talk to people. But, it is sort of bad. I don't know, I'd have to hear more about this, but if every big department, whether it be business development or anything, there was just nobody in the building. Sometimes even if one of us wanted to go see somebody, we can always pick the phone up, we can always, is that the visualization rotation?
Again, I think the visualization is that each director making decisions for their department. So if a director says on Mondays, we have no face-to-face contact, it's all office work, it's all computer work, there's no reason for any of my staff to be in the office that day, then I think the possibility exists that there'll be nobody in that office that day. If there are employees that have to be here on Tuesdays because of Board of County Commissioner meetings or because of other types of meetings, then those employees will be required to be on site those days. So I think the policy leaves it flexible so that each department can operate the way in which they need to in order to be able to provide the services that they need to provide.
Because I'm the first guy
This is not, and I understand that, and Commissioner Burkett brought it up as far as when we were talking about like COVID and so on and so forth. The committee looked at this and one of the things that we tried to come up with was making sure that this was a more controlled way of allowing this to happen. During COVID, it was not controlled. We didn't have a policy. For safety purposes, we told everybody to go home. And we did the best that we could do. Throughout the last 2 years, everybody has realized that this is something that can be done. So with the policy, we tried to write something that allowed for that control so that it wasn't, we didn't run into some of the situations that we ran in before. The other thing is this is not going to be like a mass exit out of the building if it's approved today. All employees, tomorrow aren't going to, employees aren't going to report to work. We're looking at like a July 1st start date for this, for an employee even to be able to remote work simply because there's training that needs to be involved for both the employees, for both supervisors. We want to make sure that that transition is smooth. We want to give these directors time to assess their positions within their departments, assess their employees, see who would be eligible, who's not eligible, and give them the time to be able to do all that. So
we'll know really quick because we'll get 100 phone calls. I'm not getting my permit. I'm not getting this. I'm not getting that. So we'd know pretty quick. But and it is the thing that's happening in the real estate office. There's nobody there. They're all working from home. There's no reason to be there unless you're meeting somebody. But I guess I mean, we do serve a pretty large population, and I worry about that.
Well, I think along those lines, Commissioner Wagner, and same with Commissioner Burkett, his comment is what I was thinking about too. If you walk into an office and there's a desk, a front office reception desk there, whether it's the person who staffs it today, someone should be there. And when a citizen first walks into an office, it's a little different for an employee. You kind of know where to go. But, you know, I would hope that if we have offices that are open to the public, and we have many that are, the permits office, business development, that there's someone there at the front to greet someone. If they usually work in a back office, you know, down a hallway, and they're not visible when you first walk into an office, that's not a good situation. So, you know, if we could make that a priority, that there's always someone there to greet a citizen. You know, like was said, during COVID, for safety reasons, we had to rush home and work from home, and I think the state mandated us to do that. There were some lessons learned, and I don't fault anybody for that, because first it's in the past, but you know, we didn't have a policy in place. So now we've had time to think about and craft a policy. If someone is working from home and it's just not working out, how would a reprimand work, or how would that issue be resolved? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, there would be assessments on a continuing basis or on a set time frame, like every other week, every week, depending on the position. An evaluation of the position is done. The work expectation is set. The manager meets with the employee virtually or comes into the office to meet. If the performance is not being met, then a verbal would be given, not a verbal warning, but a, hey, you know, this doesn't seem to be working.
And it'll be documented.
It'll be documented under this, not as a progressive discipline, but as a, you're not meeting it. It's as odd as it sounds, a verbal warning is written, even though it's verbal. So it would be a written verbal. It's up to the department head, though, to determine how they would measure. Our department's fairly clear, at least some of the positions that we have. We do have a lot of it. We manage the benefits, the retirement, the workers' comp, the safety. Those things are more easily measured than other departments. I can't speak to my colleagues or for my colleagues, but the manager would then meet with the employee, and then that employee, if they could not meet the expectation, would be required to come back to the office.
Okay. Can you guarantee us that just because we have a remote work policy, that doesn't mean we open up applications? People that live in California, there's still some kind of residency requirement. Obviously not Washington County per se, but someone local.
It's not a telework policy.
Section 3.3 of the drafted policy specifically states that employees aren't even considered for eligible remote work until after they've successfully completed their probationary period.
Okay.
Which, depending on which department you're in, could be 6 months to a year.
Okay.
So that eliminates the potential at this point for hiring purposes of getting an application for somebody from Texas for a position, and then actually providing them the job, and they are strictly teleworking. Nobody's ever seen what they look like before. They would actually have to come in. Training has to be provided. Supervisors, directors have to get to know this person, know what their abilities are, actually assess their abilities before they would even be considered.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I guess I'll be devil's advocate here. I'm the employee that works at the water quality. I'm the employee that plows the roads. I'm the employee who works at the highway department. These guys get to sit at home. They don't have to spend money for gas. They don't have to do this, do that. How are we handling that? Because you know there's going to be calls.
This is strictly operational advantage to the county. This is simply the county finding a new way to operate so that it can continue to be competitive and continue to provide good service to the public and finding ways that, quite frankly, to potentially save some overhead and the taxpayers some money. Unfortunately, some of these other positions, and I'm one of those positions. Every person in my office is in this situation. remote work is not an option for us. At that point, if you're asking me what does the county or should the county do something for those employees, I think that's a decision for you guys to make.
I don't think I asked that. I just wonder how you were going to handle it.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, there's some positions that just, you can't do that from. Like, I'll use my position as an example. I can't go out and deal with a barge that's in the Potomac River while I'm sitting at home. I can't go out to a flooded house that happens on a weekend, sit in my house and deal with that. So unfortunately, I chose a profession where it's in person, and that's, remote work is not necessarily an option for me. It is to a certain extent. I can work outside the office, but I can't do it from home.
I was going to say, I think some of that is just stuff that, it's part of the job.
Yeah, I mean.
Chose it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right.
I have just two more.
Well, go ahead.
If
I'll
you
yield
have.
to you first. Go ahead.
Okay. When I was reading through this policy, something that came up to me that I thought about, but I didn't think about till somebody said it, workman's comp. Safety in the home. It was discussed in the policy, what if somebody, gets up for work and they go down, they get themselves a bowl of cereal, they spill some milk and they slip in some milk and now they're making a workman's comp claim. I mean, are we liable for that kind of stuff? I mean, the other thing I think you have to keep in mind is that businesses today focus on safety a lot more than people do in their own homes. So anyway, that was one thing that
Our understanding, so when we created this policy, we took several policies from across the state and reviewed them to see what they included and how they included it. And then we kind of crafted together a policy based off of how Washington County needs to operate and how they need to work. The workers' compensation section of each of those policies was pretty much the same, in that what you see in this drafted policy is pretty much the same as it is across the state with other places that have it. Workers' compensation, somebody's at home, falls and slips on some milk and files a workers' compensation claim. Well, where are they working? That's a question. Are we going to have employees that are going to submit workers' compensation claims when they didn't really get injured while they were working? I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. I would hope not, and I would think not. I'm optimistic that the county workforce is an honest group of individuals.
Well, we'll know if accident.
Right, but basically the employee is covered within their house for workers' comp. Third parties that come in are not. The county's not liable for any type of third parties. The policy specifically states that the employee is not allowed to hold any type of meetings within their home. All meetings have to be done on site, and so that we reduce the county's liability for that too. So, the workers' compensation section of the policy is pretty straightforward, pretty standard. I can't answer if somebody's going to file a faulty workers' comp.
And so then also, two people I heard from close to when I first started was they were darned if they were going to work at home because they weren't going to pay for the upgrades to their internet, so they would be a disqualified employee, right? I mean, the county's not going to start paying to upgrade people's internet service and.
No.
That's correct.
All right.
That would be their employee.
That's all I have.
My only question, will there be a point in time you come back and give us an assessment and a review?
We can do that.
Can we ask for a 90-day?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate time to get it implemented.
From July 1st, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was just say, keep in mind, it's not even going to occur till July 1st.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, we were clearly be assessing this all the way through. So yes, that would be any.
Are there any more questions?
Could I ask maybe for ideas, and it could come from this group or any other group, really? I've spoken to a lot of people who are in favor of this plan, and quite honestly, some that aren't because their job doesn't allow them to work from home. I think of our highway, and I think Parks employee works 4 10-hour days through the week. That's a benefit that office staff doesn't have. And I know some office staff who have asked about, hey, can we work 4 10-hour days too? So I think there's things that every employee, every department gets a benefit of some sort. Is there something that we could maybe do that might be fair? One employee suggested to me, well, maybe those employees who can't work from home, not because they disqualify themselves, but because their job function doesn't allow them to work from home, some additional PTO time. Might that be an option that we give to make it fair? I don't need an answer right now. I'm just saying that was something that was mentioned to me. So those employees who can't work from home, they get a benefit as well, because this conversation started again about high gas prices. So, maybe those 4 10-hour days could be permanent. That's something that I was asked about. I don't know the feasibility of that, but you would.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I mean, you're right, and you mentioned it earlier, Commissioner Wagner, that, there will be questions now, because not everybody's going to be eligible for this, and there are some other things that we can take a look at, some of those suggestions you just mentioned. I mean, we do have some employees who work 4 10-hour days part of the year. We have employees doing a lot of different work and a lot of different schedules, which makes it more difficult. I was talking to Andrews in the back. We talked about, I don't know what, a 980 schedule or I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's all kinds of different schedules that people can come up with to try to address different things. But, that's something that we can look at, but it's considering we have people that work a lot of different schedules, we can't just do a blanket one. It would have to be a couple different things, I think. And that's, so when we thought about this, and they mentioned it, it is a separate discussion from this, because we'll have to look at it countywide.
And see, when you start doing that, costs start increasing.
Well, right, you have a lot of different things, and so it is the old peeling the onion. You start doing it, and it starts doing it. But I recognize that there are employees in positions in county government that won't be eligible for this, and I think everybody recognizes that. And but this is a step, I think, in a direction that the county and the state does, and other people do, that I think could be a good thing for us. So.
All right, is there any more questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve a remote work policy for a 90-day trial period starting July 1st.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
5-0, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the committee. They spent a lot of time working on this. I really appreciate it. And senior staff, we sent it out to senior staff, so they had a chance to review it as well. And they came back with comments and concerns and thoughts, so appreciate all of that.
Motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, guys.
Motion to go to closed session?
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.